The fact that I had to ask her permission if I wanted to cut the boy's hair, if, any educational permission, anything with the hospital.
Inconsistent visitations was, for me, was trying to explain to my son why.
Navigating the relationship between your child's birth family and ensuring that you communicate with them and you keep them informed of what's happening in the lives of their children.
Being true to that, but just kind of refraining from showing your frustration.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can't really tell you how amazing it is to be here with all of you in this one little virtual space. And thank you again so much, everyone who's here. This is really amazing. So I guess maybe we could start with the low points. What were kind of some low points during your experiences, and how did you remain positive? And if anyone wants to volunteer to answer that question first, that would be cool, or call someone out. Ben, you'd like to go?
I'll go first.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I think my lowest point, unfortunately, their biological mother ended up passing away. It was 2 years actually in January. But I feel my biggest struggle within the foster system and being involved with somebody that was, abusing, was a drug addict, was the fact that I had to ask her permission if I wanted to cut the boy's hair, if, any educational permission, anything with the hospital. So that was a really, really, eye-opener for me, because I literally had to sometimes even beg her to show up to the meetings. The boys needed a lot of help. They weren't going to school. They were so backed up. Even, dentist appointments. It was, I feel that is the biggest struggle when you're in the foster care system and the, biological parents are still involved, or they're trying to, of course, reunification is the major goal. But I feel as a foster parent, you're put in this roadblock because you really can't do a lot of things unless the biological parents give you permission. And for me, I think that was one of the biggest struggles. And I literally ended up going up to the judge in one of our meetings and said to her, listen, I can't keep doing this. Like, I'm taking off from work. She doesn't show up. I said, so you're either going to give me the educational and medical rights of these boys, or I need to step back. And I was granted the rights. Like, the judge literally said, you know what, you're right. She wouldn't show up. And it wasn't like just one meeting. I'm talking about 5, 10, 15 meetings that she would just, and they finally gave me, those rights that I was able to make those decisions, of course, within the scope of DCP&B. And I had to speak to my worker, but that was one of my biggest struggles when it came to, having to deal with the biological parents and, and just her not being dependent at all, and having to struggle through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to piggyback a little bit on that too, because I really can empathize with that journey because we were there. And on top of that, I think with the inconsistencies and families, maybe not showing up or inconsistent visitations was, for me, was trying to explain to my son why. He was at an age, though he was only 3, he was very wise 3-year-old. And he just wanted to know why can't they do this? Or why can't I do this? And I'll never forget one of our first visits where I was able to bring him in to see mom, and I was excited for him and he was excited, but saying goodbye, was one of the hardest days, where he just cried and I cried and we just cried because we didn't know what to do. What do we do with all these feelings of, you can't go home with her right now. So I think, for me, it was just being able to try to even explain to my children of why they didn't, do the things that the judge asked them to do. To this day, right, we can't answer that why. So I think that's been a really difficult, and I can imagine for the rest of our journey that they'll want to know why, and they look to us now for the answers, and not being able to have those answers are really difficult, and finding the balance of showing them, of being sensitive and showing love to the biological parents. We know how healthy that is and how important it is, but also finding a balance of speaking truth, but also trying to shield them a little bit from the truth, right? At such a young age was really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. That does sound incredibly difficult, and holding those different truths at once is something that comes up over and over again with as I talk to parents and things like that. I'm wondering if Carly and Bethany, if you have that kind of a similar experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have had similar experiences, and it's hard, right? Navigating the relationship between your child's birth family and ensuring that you communicate with them and you keep them informed of what's happening in the lives of their children. I mean, we also have to think too, what they must be feeling. You know, they might be feeling scared and fear and the unknown and unsure and feeling all of these scary feelings, and we have to, at least Bethany and I, really try to look at it through like the lens of trauma and really try to understand and communicate with the birth families in that way. We are really lucky with our daughter Shay. We have a very open relationship with her birth mother and keep her a part of our life and Shay's life. And she's been a huge part of our family since, and even before we adopted Shay. So it's hard, and it's a hard thing to navigate with birth families because you don't really know your place. And as a foster parent, I think that is a very common feeling. What is our place? Who are we in this in this relationship? But if you just continue to try to communicate, we started communicating with Shay's mom in a notebook. Every day for visits, we would send little letters, and she ate this much today. She likes this food and this snack and this song. And then over time, it became more than a notebook. And now she's a huge part of our life. And actually, she advocated for her to be adopted by us at the time of surrender and TPR, because we had that bond. So it was a lot of work and a lot of patience and a lot of prayer, but it all, it worked out for the best for our daughter.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge the fact that not every case is like that, and it's not always safe every time to have those relationships with the biological family. And it's hard to navigate. Like we have a great relationship with Shay's parents, but we have no relationship at all with Avery's family. So like navigating, even like now that they're getting a little bit older and they start to recognize that she gets to go see her birth mom and like she comes, like it's hard, and like every situation is so different. So
Yeah, I'm curious too how you try to like explain that, or like what, you know, because it's like trying to explain these really difficult, complex things to young children, and who sometimes have like a more clear kind of like understand. They're like, well, why can't it just be this way? You know what I mean? So what do you say in those moments of when you have to explain that?
we're still figuring it out.
Right now. I think for us, like our number one rule is just to remain open. It's just to like have the conversations as often as we can, normalize it, not make it this like scary thing to navigate, but to try to just have conversations. Like, for example, our current foster son has visits with his birth mom every week. So we talk about birth mom. What is birth mom? Who is birth mom? What does that look like? And things like that with our littles, because they're only 2, you know, so that is a hard conversation to have. So we're still navigating it.
Yeah, and with our 18-year-old, it's hard because she has relationships with some of her family, but not all of her family. But like she understands, obviously, like she's 18, she gets it. So even having conversations with her about like, listen, your family still loves you. Like you're not here because of, you know, anything that you did wrong, anything like that. Like having those conversations is just so important. So we don't always say it right, or ever probably say it right, but we just try to say it.
Yeah, and leaving choice too for our oldest. Like it's her choice if she wants to have a relationship or what that relationship looks like. So to honor and empower her choice, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And that kind of brings me to, I mean, Amber has kind of the other perspective of the youth in care, and I'm wondering if you have thoughts on what would make that kind of conversation easier for, obviously, not necessarily your specific circumstance, but for just youth in care in general.
I think it's really important to honor that the child likely has some kind of torn loyalty, similar to like a divorce, like they love their parent no matter what they did, they love their parent. And but they also are going to love you the same. So if you're talking poorly about the bio parent, or showing that frustration, it can put the child in a situation where they're kind of feeling like they have to be loyal. Are they loyal to you, or are they loyal to their birth family? So I love that what Carly was sharing as far as like honoring that and being true to that, but just kind of keeping refraining from showing your frustration, because the situation's undoubtedly very frustrating, but it's also frustrating for the child too. So
Absolutely.
I think I learned through trauma, like the therapy, was the use of like child language around addiction or domestic violence, or in the beginning I thought it was like, oh, you can't talk about that, it's like but through the resources that we were provided, we were able to talk about at an age appropriate way, in an age appropriate way. So sometimes we did have an answer of like, yeah, that's addiction. And sometimes when you're addicted, this is what it looks like. And it's not, I think again, to remind the child that it's not their fault and that they didn't do anything wrong, but that, something like addiction or something like family trauma is, the why behind it. So I felt really empowered with those resources and that support to be able to, oh yeah, we can say those things, right? Because I think in the beginning, like, you don't know what is okay, and you don't want to say the wrong thing, so maybe you don't talk enough, and you're just constant. It's so exhausting, like just trying, like, did I say too much? Did I not say enough? And I think just reading and asking questions and having that support is so important when you're in this journey, especially in the beginning, because it's hard to know what's okay and what's not okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's amazing. I do also just want to remind everyone that if anyone has questions at any point, any of the participants, you're welcome to share questions in the chat, and we can try to address those. I'd love to have this be like interactive. So yeah, absolutely. I guess I also have the question of like, what did you think going into child welfare, and how did it change with your experience? I don't know if we have anyone who wants to answer that one first.
I'll answer. What did I think? Going into the foster care system, and I would say my goal, just like Lisa, I had empty house. My daughters were both, one had graduated college, the other one was almost finishing college. My stepson had left to the National Guards. I had an empty 4-bedroom home. So I was like, oh, let's go foster a little girl. That's what I want. And that's what we went into it, my ex-husband and myself. We were going to foster this little girl. No, God had different plans. We ended up with the 5 boys. But I do have to say, I'm just going to touch back on something Amber said about having to control how you feel, especially in front of them when the biological parents do something wrong. That was something that I really struggled a lot with, because I was always judging her as a mother. Unfortunately, she did end up passing away. And I actually, believe it or not, was the one that did the GoFundMe for her. I actually buried her in the town that we live in so that the boys could see her. I ended up doing all that. But there was, within the foster care system, I just feel like Lisa said, you're not really prepared. Even though you take these classes and you get certified, you don't know what to do. You don't know what to expect. And you have these children looking up to you as, what are we doing here? And it's navigating, because I mean, to me, especially for me, I don't think I was able to treat them as my biological children. Now I do, of course, but when I was fostering them, it was like, you know, what do I do here? What do I say wrong? And am I saying something too rough? And am I being too rough? I mean, these are children with trauma that, you know, and it's like, oh my God. And to me, it was relearning how to parent. And I do have to say my major accomplishment was becoming a more humble and just sensitive parent, because with my daughters, they were my daughters, and I was able to say, you know, we're not doing this, we're not going to do that. But with them, I had to step back and really learn how to be humble and understand that they were coming from a place of, you know, hurt and abuse and trauma, and I needed to be a different parent. So I just feel, to me, the foster care system, which was I became, was, even though my daughter actually just sent me a video, my oldest daughter, like, wow, you've come a long way, you know, when it comes to parenting, because it just made me a better parent. I have to say, it hasn't all been negative. I just became this humble person that understands that unfortunately, there are parents that sometimes don't want to do it. You know, unfortunately, they get addicted and, you know, whatever circumstance it is. But I became a better mother because of these 5 boys. I really did. And that's how I feel. You know, a more humble, loving mother, I should say, because of these 5 boys.
I'll share too, Rachel. I don't know why I was so naive. I don't know. It wasn't a movie. I don't know why I thought in my head that we're going to open up our home and we're going to bring in a child, and then we would help them reunite. You know, in 3 months, I don't know why, like in 3 months, they would be reunited and they would go home and we'd celebrate them. And then we'd receive another child. And like, I had this like idea that in like 2 years, we would foster 20 children and like reunification, like, yay, they just need some support. They just need a little bit of help. They just need, you know, some time. And we'll be that, right? And so like, I really had this picture in my mind. And then like, you know, with our son, when like 2 months in, they're like, so what do you think about adoption? And my husband and I were like, wait, what? That's not what we signed on the paper. Like we put a little X on the just fostering, right? So I think one of the things is like, even just, and it's hard not to have expectations, but really what we learn is like, you just don't know. And every day could bring a new surprise. Every phone call changes everything. Every court date is, you know, a time where things can shift. So I had to learn to like let go of control and just go with it. I never really did good with that. And you can ask any of my workers that are here about how much I would harass them with emails. And I just like, you know, it was just, I thought I was going to be part of a team. And honestly, like I just didn't feel, there were a lot of times where I just felt like I was a home and I was just going to feed them and that's it, because I couldn't, like Benny mentioned, you know, I couldn't go get the haircut and I couldn't just, you know, sign them up for this or do this or that. Like I couldn't just go down to Pennsylvania because it was out of state and we needed court permission, right? Like there was a lot that I didn't know and we had to learn and navigate. And it was it was really interesting how like it shifted from what we thought we would, right? Like, and he was our first placement, so here we are 4 years later, we didn't get to, you know, reunite children, and there wasn't 20 kids. It was, you know, but it was a different story, and I'm so thankful for that. So yeah, expectations are hard in the beginning of fostering.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so interesting, the ideas that we have about things before we actually like go into the experience. Yeah, did Carly and Bethany, did you have anything else you wanted to share on that?
Yeah, I think that when we went into this, we also kind of had this picture perfect idea of what it was going to look like. This is how we chose to grow our family. We don't have biological children. We went into this kind of wanting to do the fostering, wanting to do the adopting, being super open to helping like reunify kids and helping keep kids here who couldn't go home. The one thing we said we would never do is get a teenager. And we got a call for a teenager, and for some reason we said yes.
And it was one of our best yeses.
Yeah, but I think that it's also been our hardest yes. Like navigating that is so different than navigating babies. Like it's just a whole different world. So
yes, we always joke about the day that she came to our home. She sat down at at our dinner table and said, "So what are your rules?" And we were like, "Don't throw your toys at each other." Like, we were like, "We don't know how to do this teenager thing. Like, what are we doing?"
Right. I just looked there and was like, we're gonna have to get back to you
Yeah,
because we have no idea.
We'll work
Like,
on this together.
yeah, so I think like kind of like what was being said earlier about learning how to parent differently than you did your biological children, we had to learn to parent differently than we did like the babies. They came as newborns to us, so we were raising them like they were our own from the beginning, but she was coming with an entire 16 years of trauma and history and a past that didn't involve us. So like kind of learning to do things a lot different than we had planned or than we thought we would raise our own teenagers who had been in our homes like their whole lives. So for us, that was probably like expectations versus reality. We were like, this is not what we thought we were signing up for, but
Here we are.
here we are.
And she is weeks away from getting adopted now. So
I just wanted to chime in with regards to what Carly and Bethany just spoke about. I just wanted to let you guys know, just coming from the perspective of being that teenager in the foster care system, how much you guys, like, what you're doing is so amazing. I'm standing here today because adults that had no relation to me took the time to care about me and guide me. Although at the time, admittedly, I was not very receptive to their guidance. But once I was able to work through that trauma, I was able to kind of take what they had said that I had stored way back here and kind of go with it and grow into the mom that I am today, which makes me extremely proud because I've overcome all of that. So I just wanted to say, like I am so thankful, and like it makes my heart happy that you guys took a chance on a teenager, because I was there. I was that teenager. I was in 8 different placements. Nobody wanted to work with me. Nobody wanted to take a chance on me because I was a little rough around the edges. In retrospect, I was rough around the edges because I just wanted to go back to my norm. That was my norm, even though it was extremely dysfunctional. What I came from a home where there was sexual abuse, drug abuse, you neglect, lots of neglect. But that's all I knew growing up, and I just wanted to go back there. I didn't want all these strangers trying to tell me what to do when I had essentially been raising myself. So I just thank you guys for taking a chance on a teenager.
oh well, like I mentioned, it was one of my most life changing decisions. And I know that we don't know much about you, Amber, but I'm proud of you. And who you are and where you've come from and what you're going to become. And just knowing our foster daughter, I was about to say her name. Oh man.
Okay.
She has come in such a long way and has so much more to do with her life, and just to see her soul be reignited has been one of my greatest joys. So.
But I'm also hoping that she's storing everything in the back of her head for later because she doesn't listen yet.
Not yet. Sometimes.
So that's good to hear.
I would like to say something as well to both Amber and you, Carly and Bethany. My oldest, which was 14 when he first came to my home, it's funny because he was their father. So he had like this father role with the boys. He would like question everything I did, and he would look at me and I'm like, it's okay, you're 14, go be a child. I got this, I'm the adult. Now Xavier's he got a full ride to Monmouth University. He's in college. He's actually studying to be a psychologist as well. That's going to be his major. And I changed his middle name to Phoenix. You rise from the ashes. That's his middle name. And when his biological mother's first death anniversary, I honestly forgot about it. Like I truly did. And I felt so guilty the next day. And I'm like, oh my God, Xavier, I'm so sorry. Like I forgot this was her 1 year death anniversary. So he looked me dead in the eye and he said, I love you, I love her, and I also forgot. So don't feel sorry. That's how good of a job you're doing. So it basically, they do remember. And he, even now in college, he's like, Mom, every time I'm gonna do something, I hear you back here. I'm like, good. and he tells me that he was like, I did, 4 years into it, he was like, I acted like I wasn't listening, but I promise you I was listening. And he's doing great in college. I mean, he finished his first year and he's thriving. I mean, I'm very proud of that, 14-year-old little boy who was basically a father to all his siblings and everything. And he actually, all the trauma, he really lived through it. All the drug, he really lived through it as well. And he's doing fantastic. But they do remember it because now him and I have an amazing bond right now. I mean, he writes me letters that I literally put me to tears. They put me to tears. So they do listen. They do listen. I just think it is harder with a, teenager, but I mean, he's doing great. So thank you. And thank you, Amber, for sharing your story as well.
Yeah, Amber, thank you so much. We have a comment in the chat that I was going to read aloud too, from Tawana. As an 18-year-old coming into the system at 12, I think it's very important to normalize having preteens and teenagers. So thank you. I was adopted at 15 and can personally attest to what Amber was speaking on. We are or were fighting a lot of trauma, but are longing for love and support. I definitely agree, Amber. So yeah, that's Tawana, thank you so much for sharing as well. And Amber, I guess, what age were you when you entered care? And if you wanted to speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I was first removed at 12 and I went back home and then I was removed again for the final time at 15. So, and I ended up aging out. I was never adopted and I just kind of floated around from home to home.
Yeah, and I'm just curious too how like kind of that time, and then I know you ended up going to school for some different things. So what kind of was that time period like in between aging out and becoming a little bit more stable, perhaps?
Prior to aging out of the system, I kind of came to the end of the road because I had basically burned through all the foster homes. Nobody else wanted me. I ended up going to a couple of different group homes. And then once I turned 17, I feel like DIFUS was kind of like, oh, thank God, we can get rid of her. I was a handful. They put me in independent living program. And that was supposed to, I guess, prepare you for adulthood. But I really feel like because I was so stunted as far as, again, because of that trauma, I wasn't able to really mature and to take what they were teaching me. They would teach, how to, I was working 3 jobs, I was staying out of trouble and all of that. But I mean, as far as preparing me for adulthood, I think I first needed to really address the trauma, because once I did that, then I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of start living instead of surviving. So after I aged out, I just kind of floated around and I didn't know what to do, or I don't know. I was just kind of stunted, I guess is the best word for it. And then I got pregnant with my oldest son and I was like, uh-oh, what do I do now? I'm about to be a mother. I don't know who thought this was a great idea to make me become a mother, but I started going back to school because I had that responsibility of, raising another human being and making sure that he had a better life than I would have had. So I went back to college and, it took me a long time to graduate. I ended up graduating eventually with my master's degree in social work. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Yeah, and I think it's so interesting. I think a lot of the children involved in child welfare do end up kind of going that route of psychology and social work. And I know, Benny, you said that Xavier's also studying that, which is really cool. Congratulations to him, by the way. I think you said he got a full scholarship to college, which is incredible. So that's amazing. So I guess another question I have is, what do you most want the public to take away from your story? So like, just if anyone has thoughts on that, starting out.
I guess I'll go because I'm here,
Please.
ready to talk. I just really wanted people to understand the perspective of what it's like to walk into a stranger's home when you're a child, and like I said, you're taken from your norm, even though it's not normal at all, but that's what I grew up in, that's all I knew. And you're going into a stranger's home, and kind of also what I was saying, as far as essentially, because there was so much neglect in my home, I was raising myself. So now I had to answer to strangers and a system, like it was just like, I wasn't a good listener for sure. I pushed buttons constantly, but that's why, because I didn't understand. And looking back, I think a lot of that had to do with, maybe there was a part of me that thought if I exhausted everybody, they'd just get so tired of me, they'd send me back home. It didn't work out that way though. But regardless, yeah, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. It was just what you want the public to take away from your story.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was getting there. Sorry. I just want the public to know, like, what it's like for a teenager to walk into a stranger's home, to start following directions and rules that I was like, rules? What rules? And I know a lot of our kids are, they are coming from neglect situations. So I would venture to guess that I wasn't the only kid, and I won't be the only kid that ever kind of was resistant to rules and being told what to do. And I know I needed so much patience, and I needed somebody, like an adult, to just care about me and not give up on me. I think that was the biggest thing I was guilty of, was pushing people away so they didn't hurt me first. It was kind of like that self-fulfilling prophecy of, like, see, everybody does hurt you. You can't rely on anybody. So you end up pushing everybody away. But I just beg of the foster parents to please stick with that kid. They need love more than anything in the world. And I wish a lot of the foster parents of the homes that I was in had stuck with me and given it a little bit more of a go, and kind of overlooked a lot of my behaviors. Yeah, but I am thankful there. Like I said, there were some adults that cared a lot about me. And if I could, I'd thank them today. I'm always very thankful that I did have some adults that cared about me, but for the most part, a lot of foster parents just kind of couldn't deal with me. So that's what my video and me opening up and being vulnerable and open and like discussing everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, is in the hopes of somebody like taking that and seeing it maybe from a different perspective. So
Yeah. And do you remember what what those parents, or what the people who did care about you, like what their actions were that showed you that they cared? I think that's something that sometimes is hard to understand too.
they didn't take me personally. If I cursed them out, or I was a teenager, I was an angry teenager. I didn't want to be in the situation I was in. And it was like I would throw my temper tantrum and curse at them. And they'd kind of be like, are you done yet? You know? And I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, you know, like you're supposed to yell back or whatever. And also looking back, I think that was trying to recreate the chaos that I had grown up in. So
I think that's such an important point. Yeah, you know, like you were in a situation that no one deserves to be in, and it was understandable that you were incredibly frustrated. And I love what you said about them not taking it personally. It's, you know, because it's not about them. It's, you know, it's your whole situation. It's about your life, you know. We have some
second Amber.
Oh.
I would love to say something about that. What Amber said, and I think especially, you know, dealing with Xavier, Ethan, and Aiden, who are my three oldest, I also feel like what she said, as a parent, if you're going to go into the foster care system, you really need to take a step back and understand whatever these children are, because it took me a few months to actually accept that as well. They weren't doing it intentionally to me. It was something that they were dealing with. And I have to be honest, like I myself went to therapy to deal with the children, to change my mindset, to say, okay, let me take a step back and understand that, like I told you from the beginning, I'm not parenting my biological children. These children are coming from a place of trauma, from a place of abuse, and it's not personal, it's not for me. And I feel the biggest message that I could say to anyone entering this is like, you're going to help someone, but that child is also going to change your life. And if you accept that into a positive realm of reality, that the positivity that these children want to give you, but shut down because they're afraid you're going to disappoint them as well, once you open that door, it's magical. It's magical because my sons love me now, and I know and I see them that it's pure magic once they know and believe in you and know that you're not going to walk away from them or turn your back on them if they do something wrong. And I feel now, 4.5 years later, my boys truly believe that. And I say this to everyone, once those kids trust you, they change your life. They really do. Whether they're a teenager or 3 years old, they change your life. And it's a beautiful thing to do, and do it because you really want to do it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I was going to actually say that exact thing, that a lot of us, at least myself, I went into foster care because I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something, right? Like I had this desire to make a change or to impact a child or to be stability or be love and hope for a kid. But you are so right, Benny, that is something that I didn't really realize, the amount of change and impact that these children would have on my life and my heart. Being a foster parent completely changed me as a human in a good way. And it definitely is something that I never saw coming. Like I never thought that a 3-year-old or a 17-year-old or anyone could make that much of an impact on me permanently, like a permanent imprint on my heart. And that is something that is so powerful. And another thing that I want to tell people is to, as a foster mom, something that has really been beneficial for me is to be a foster mom with other foster moms. Community is important because there is not a lot of people that know and feel what you're going through or that can get it, you know. So really connecting to community, connecting to, you know, we are really involved with Foster the Family, which is an organization that provides a lot of free support groups for foster moms. We need support. Just like Benny says she goes to therapy, we need a place where we can all come together and talk and vent and cry and support one another and ask resources from. So utilize your village. Utilize your village.
And Rachel, I'd like to also add something that, you know, I wish I could put on a microphone and just say to people who are considering fostering or just thinking or just wondering or even saying like, oh, that's not for me, just to I would hear a lot and still hear a lot, like, I could never do that, or, and it's not for everyone, but I think to really consider it and to get to get plugged in, and to love on foster families, or just to kind of learn more. My husband in the beginning was very like, no, for years. And it wasn't until we went to like a meeting and him hearing stories, right? And that's why I think I love this, the work that Umbrella is doing with sharing stories, because it really does open the doors for other people to reconsider, to consider it. It does sometimes feel like I can't do this. There were many times that I just felt like maybe this is not for me. I just can't handle the going through it all. But that, and tying it into what everyone else is saying, is that they, early on, I realized like, it's not that they need me, like I need them as much, and in my story that I shared through Umbrella was on being diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years into fostering. The first thing I told my husband was like, I can't deal with cancer. Like, I'm a foster mom and they need me. And yet, my son held my hand as we all shaved our heads and, wanted to be part of that. And who would have thought that a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old would actually be helping us through something so difficult as a family. So just, encouraging people that if you're thinking and considering to really, you might need a push a little bit, and I think, and if it's not for you, that's okay too. But as Carly mentioned, that we need help too, and we need support, and we need, so get plugged in and just get to know more families that look a little bit differently, because there's such a need, and it's really heartbreaking, especially, when you look at just the data. There's a lot of children, a lot of teenagers, a lot of families that just need the support. And so just to consider it and be open to it.
I love that. And there was a foster mom in my life that when I was considering, or when we were considering becoming foster parents, I said, I don't know if I can do it. I would get too attached. And they said, yes, I get too attached. I get attached every time, because they deserve that. The kids that are coming into your home, whether they're newborn babies or 17-year-old girls, boys, whatever, they deserve that attachment. And they yearn for that, and they love that. And it's a really powerful thing. And if you're considering foster care, that really like opened my eyes a little bit to be stepping forward more, saying, yes, I do get attached to these kids, and that's okay.
Thank you so much, everybody. That's amazing. We have some great stuff happening in the chat also. I just wanted to maybe read some of it. So Janet Alvario Sneed said, Amber, thank you for sharing your story. Coming through foster care, you've touched my heart, and your message will be shared by me as I connect to resource parents. As a resource worker, many blessings to you and your family. And then on the topic of what foster parents can do to show that they care for, especially, teenagers who are a little bit maybe struggling, Tawana added that the words, I believe you, I see you, I hear you, are really important even through difficult times. The act of remaining consistent and working with me, which is an amazing insight, which I appreciate. Thank you for sharing that, Tawana. So some great stuff happening there. And Janet gives a shout out to Miss White as she adopted her son today. Congratulations, Miss White. Shout out to all the resource families present today. You're all inspirational. So awesome. Thank you, everybody, so much. So does anyone have anything else that they want to share or talk about or add? Anything they didn't, that we didn't mention? I mean, there's always more to talk about, but nothing? Cool. Well, if we're pretty much talked out here, I just want to add that if people want to watch the videos of, Carly and Bethany's video, Benny's video, Amber's video, Lisa's video, you can go to futuresfamily.org to see all those amazing stories. I really encourage you to do so. They're also on our YouTube, the videos at least. The photo essays and articles, written articles are not on our YouTube. Those are just on futuresfamily.org. So definitely check that out if you would like to. And again, for the next 2 live sessions, you go back into the app and then get to that separate Zoom link through there. I know it's kind of a little bit weird, and like I hope everyone was able to figure that out too for the earlier things.
I would like to say one thing, Rachel. If anyone wants to reach out to me, becomes friends with me on Facebook, Rachel has my information. I'll be more than happy to become friends with you guys. Because honestly, like you said, Carly, Bethany, that support, that community support is always welcome. Especially now I am a single mom, so it's a lot harder for me sometimes. But I would love for any one of you guys to reach out. It would be great.
Yeah, I think that's something that comes up a lot too when I'm talking with people, is just how important the community is. I think it is a really unique experience to be a foster parent, and I agree so much that finding that community and finding that village is absolutely so important. Yeah. Anyone else? Anything? Any closing remarks? No? I want to thank you all again so much, everyone who's tuning in and the speakers today. You're all really incredible, and thank you for being willing to get vulnerable and share your story and your experiences. So thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of the day.
Awesome. Happy weekend, everyone.
Yes, everyone enjoy your weekend and the weather, and stay cool.
Yes. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.